evidence at all that the ULP would have rigged the elections or cheated in the elections, I would have resigned from the party. And from the speakership, I saw no such evidence. Clearly, as you said, there were certain irregularities, and irregularities in some cases that the observer missions have cited for some time, and irregularities that any serious government, and I'm sure this government is a serious government, would make an attempt to correct. But I didn't see anything which says that the numbers reflected on the night of the elections were not the will of the people as reflected in the ballots which they went to the polls to cast.
How fundamental it is, though, that we are heading into a new election process and we still have those petition cases hanging over us?
Well, I think that's really, really, really unfortunate. I think that it is a fundamental flaw in our democracy. I think that when you have these kind of protests, the court should ensure that any conflict, any problems, any questions about the poll, about the election should be resolved in a year of the last poll. I think it's bad for our democracy, where there are challenges to two constituencies which, had they gone another way, could have resulted in a different government. That 4 years and 2 months into the term of this current government, we have not yet had a resolution on those disputed constituencies, being North Windward and Central Leeward.
I've heard some statements, fishing expeditions, abuse of process. Is that what happened? Was there a fundamental case to begin with, or was it just plain old politics?
Well, you know, historically, Donnie, every losing party finds a way to protest. Remember, I think in 94 or 98, the ULP had filed a raft of election petition. Before that, I remember Randolph Russell had filed some. Before that, I think Mike Brown had filed some. So every party that loses an election finds a way to say that it was cheated. And I think that's the way the democracy works, that you feel aggrieved, you go to the court, and the court resolve it. Unfortunately, the court has not yet resolved these two contested elections in North Windward and Central. I don't think that the issue of abuse of process was an allegation made by the petitioners against what the government had did. And Justice Henry upheld the view that there was some abuse of process because they had two applications before, a motion and an application before the court at the same time. Some of the allegations that were made, rather serious allegations, and it would have been good if the court could have resolved it. And we have not gotten there yet. That's unfortunate.
Well, the elections would be this year. Some are saying November. We have gotten quite accustomed to December elections now. Definitely won't be carnival. So we are not expecting in the first half of the year an election. This matter is yet to be resolved. Is there any chance that this might be resolved before the elections?
Well, it all depends. I know the Court of Appeal is coming here next week. I don't know if that matter is on the list for resolution. Even if it is argued next week, it is highly probable that the court is going to take at least a few weeks to consider. I am absolutely certain they will do a written decision. So it may take a little while after the sitting, if it is heard next week, for a decision to be rendered. Whether it would be resolved before now and December. In essence, I mean, I think that no one, I haven't followed the process particularly closely to say what were the legal tactics of both sides. But if you're a sitting government and you have a 5-year term and you have contested elections in 2 constituencies, and you were able to go for 4 years and 2 months without a resolution one way or the other, I would say you're doing pretty well.
Fundamentally, what does it mean now for resolution, though, for a decision to go either way? At this stage,
if a decision comes now, suppose a decision were to come now, and it is said, for example, that the ballot did not reflect the will of the people, either in 1 or 2 of the constituencies, then you may have to hold a by-election in either constituency or in both constituencies. And let us hypothetically say that the opposition wins 1 of those, then they would have to do that part of the term. Well, that would be an interesting constitutional question, because if 4 years and 2 months of this term is gone, and the opposition finally wins in court, and hypothetically, suppose they were to go on to win 1 or 2. In other words, the status quo is changed.
right?
You now have, and they go to a by-election and they win 1 or 2 of those. The question is, do they serve 8 months or do they serve 5 years? I don't know.
And that's a constitutional question.
Well, I would think, but maybe I'm sure. I haven't really given it a lot of thought, but I am sure somebody who know much more than I know would quickly have an answer to say, no, they may only have to serve the remainder of the term. Because that's clearly an argument that would be made by any set of lawyers who would want to argue that view.
So next week, we would see if that is on the table.
As I said, I am not sure if it's if it's calendared for decision.
Let's say, though, let's move that out of our minds, although it is hard to do, that is not a grey cloud. We're heading into an election, and we're looking for election by the end of this year.
Yes.
Have the ruling party done enough to remain in power, to get new votes, to perhaps get a swing vote, because there's always this talk about the swing vote. Has the ruling party done enough?
Well, that is not for me to say. That is for the electorate to say. They're the ones who are going to vote to decide who forms the next government. The ULP has, like any government, would point to a number of things that it has done. There's the geothermal project that's coming on. There's things that it has done in the past that it would always play back. I mean, if you listen to PM Gonzalez in the budget debate, you heard him waxing almost nostalgic of all of the things that the government did over the years. And I'm sure those would come into the election campaign again. Whether people are still drawn to all of those things is another question. I remember saying when I was inside the party, or to persons who would listen, that the airport would not make a fundamental difference in the outcome of the election, because the airport may have more draw to persons, Vincentians, who are outside in terms of direct connections coming back than for Vincentians inside, and that position was not taken kindly. In fact, I was shellacked on radio saying that I was underestimating by one of the ULP blowhards, that I was underestimating the airport. I have always been in support of the airport. I think that the airport is a crucial and important piece of infrastructure as we move on the path to national development. But I was talking in political electoral terms, and I think the 2015 elections proved me correct. Although I too think that those results could have been different had different strategy and tactics been employed. But so there's that, there's the airport, there's the geothermal project, there's the issue of the port, They're the hotels that are being built and so on. Whether those capture the imagination of the people sufficiently to result in a return of the ULP government is left to be seen. We have to know, Donnie, that since 2010, we have had an 8-7 balance. Politics on a knife edge, as some people would like to say. I know the ULP is gunning for 2 seats, which are now currently, well, they're probably gunning for more, but certainly they think that the opposition is vulnerable and we've always thought that the opposition is vulnerable in North Leeward and South Leeward. And these have historically been very narrow, marginal seats. But the opposition held on in 2010, won in 2010 and held on in 2015 in both seats. The ULP have reasonably attractive candidates, but whether these candidates would be able to pull it off is left to be seen. The converse argument, and if these strategists on the ULP side are not thinking this way, they are not too much of a strategist. If they think that they can, and they ought to think that they could flip North Leeward and Central Leeward, it must be in their calculation that North Windward and Central Leeward can be flipped. It is true that the margins in both of these seats are different. I think it's 320 in North Windward and 314 in Central Leeward in terms of raw numbers. But every election is a different election. The question as to what has happened over the years, you can be sure, Donnie, that the issue of unemployment is going to be a big, big issue in this election. If the opposition don't know that yet, then they don't know anything about politics. And unemployment is a serious, serious problem in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I mean, we hang out of a particular place every now and again, and we see what the traffic is, and we talk to the proprietor, and we know what the difficulties are. And that is an open secret. It is true that there are a lot of people who are seeing real difficulties in making ends meet. And that is going to be a central question. There are a whole host of other issues that may come into play, and I don't want to give any advice for free for anybody. But certainly, it is not going to be an easy election. I mean, rhetoric aside.
The ULP, however, has continued to rejuvenate. We are seeing new blood coming in. Would that make a difference?
Well, it may. I mean, you see, I'm not so sure. In the way in which party politics has developed in St. Vincent, Donnie, the individual would only make a difference on the margins. Overwhelmingly, whichever individual goes up, that individual would be relying fundamentally on the support of the party, unless there's an individual who has an enormous amount of money and can splurge that around in the villages to the young people and probably would be able to get scores of them, hundreds of them to go out and vote. Unless that is going to happen, if you're relying on the party to carry it, it is not going to, whether you are new or old, it's not going to take you very far.
That goes on both sides?
Both sides. I think fundamentally what happens if you're the governing party is what the governing party was able to do over the 5 years, or what the government party did immediately running up to the elections. I got to tell you that I don't believe in this tactic where you backload everything for the last year or the last 6 months, because people are getting increasingly informed and they would know, look, this is juice now.
So a spate of road work at this stage will not help?
No, I'm not saying it would not help. I'm saying it is less likely to help in 2020 than it did in 1970.
Because I heard a statement from the Minister of Transport and Works that by perhaps the third quarter of this year, every piece of road in this country would see some work.
Yeah.
That's what the people have been asking for.
Yeah. I think the difference, though, I think what the ULP is trying to do is to replicate what the NDP did when it came in 1984, because by 1989 it had done all of this road work, which were derisively called Guti tracks.
Right. But that's the PF program you're talking about now.
No, right. Back then it was called the ULP.
So they are mimicking that by calling it the PF program.
PF program. Okay. And these are important things to be done, in terms of helping people with access to their houses and so on and so forth. But as I said, I think it's going to be, it would not have the same impact in 2020 as it did in 1989.
With a number of work like the diamond track that have been called for a number of years, the hotels that is much needed, would that make an impact on the unemployment numbers?
Well, in a transitory sense, that work is not going to last forever, because construction is always an engine. People get work here and there, on and off. They get a 6 months here, they get a 3 months there, and that is going to help. If somebody has a few $100s in their pocket, they can take care of themselves. They can give their girlfriends or wives something. They can give a child something. That would help in them beginning to think, well, boy, what can I do, or who's better placed to take this country forward? I think all of those things could help in some significant way, but fundamentally, I think that the unemployment issue is going to be a big issue.
Has the NDP done enough to attract new voters and to swing some votes from the ULP to them?
It's difficult for me to say, but if you look at the trend, Donnie, since 2001, in 2001, I think the ULP got just over 30,000 votes, and the NDP got 23,000 votes. In other words, the ULP won by over 7,000 votes, the margin, or close to 7,000 votes. Between 2001 and now, the NDP, in terms of popular votes, has closed that gap. So now I think the NDP got just over 31,000 votes in the last election, and the ULP got 34,000 votes. So from a numerical standpoint, from a popularity standpoint, both parties are almost in dead heat. But in St. Vincent, we have a first past the poll situation. So Patel Matthews was able to win by 12. The Honorable Adam Eustace was able to win by 145. Honorable Nigel Stevenson was able to win by 119. The ULP, those persons who won on the ULP side, won by larger margin. And the election results showed that the ULP politicians, candidates improved on their numbers, whereas some of the NDP candidates reduced. I think the only person who increased on the number last time in the 2015 election on the opposition side was the Honorable Sinclair Leacock. So that's a trend that is worth watching. That is a trend that may tell us something. Whether the ULP is going to be able to continue on that trend or that there could be a reversal is left to be seen. I got to tell you that it would be a monumental achievement if the ULP were to go on and win 5 consecutive times. That does not happen very often in the Caribbean or certainly in the world. It's going to be a major achievement. But people get battle weary, people get tired.
That was one of my questions.
People get battle weary, people get tired, people say, nah,
time for change, that mantra, they've been there too long.
I am not so sure that we want these men to continue. So that's something that we're going to look at. And sometimes people say, oh, we have a 5%, I won the seat by 5% last time. But I've looked at elections here, I looked at elections across the region where somebody may have a significant victory in one election and is completely wiped out in the next. I'm not saying that is going to happen either for opposition politician or for government politician. I'm saying that is possible. I remember the time when in St. Vincent we used to say, so go Kingstown, so goes the country.
The rest of the country. Yeah.
Not so anymore. Yeah. The NDP has controlled Kingstown since the 2010 elections, but they haven't been able to wrest the government from the Unity Labour Party. So the glib talk, a lot of glib talk that we have is not grounded in serious analysis. Or sometimes the reality and the ground may surprise us on many fundamental questions. And I think that we may have some surprises in this election.
The youth vote and the woman vote are thought to be hefty numbers.
Yes.
How does that shape up? We have the ULP with perhaps some of the younger candidates and more women candidates. Would that be enough? Or did the NDP look critically at this to look at their candidates?
Well, the NDP has not floated its entire slate yet, so I don't know who they would have. I know the ULP has 2 female candidates. The former NIS executive, Minerva Glasgow, who is contested in the area where I contested last time. And there's Deborah Charles, who is contesting in West Kingston. That's 2 candidates there. And the ULP has a number of young candidates. They have or people who are just, Camilo Gonzalez, Soboto Caesar, Luke Brown, Carlos James. Those are of a younger generation, and they are coming on. 2 of them are elected, 2 others are trying to see if they can get in for the first time. I don't think the young face is what would win it for any party. I think it is what you offer. It is how you project yourself into the constituency. Some people, for example, are very haughty. Some people are very dismissive of people and won't get around whether that would carry a particular candidate, would hamstrung a particular candidate if he's running on a particular party ticket is left to be seen. I got to tell you though, on the issue of the youth vote, it is always said that the ULP has a lock on the youth vote. I don't think that that's verifiable. What the ULP has been able to do, well, not that it's not verifiable. I don't think that is an issue that is locked, that is decided. I think when you look at the electoral campaigns, you see young people going for both parties and going for both parties in great numbers. It is true that the ULP has done a lot, well, a fair amount, particularly in education, but a number of people, and if you talk to young people, and I know you do, you would hear people say, yeah, no, but the problem that I have now is, yeah, I went to school, I got a number of subjects, I went to community college, I get past that, but it's 5 years now and I haven't had a job. The question is whether people would settle for simply the fact that they got to go to community college and settle for that, rather than say, but I put in all the effort that you asked me to put in, and I still don't have a job. Should I stay with you? So that's where I think it's going to be the question.
So we're back to unemployment as perhaps the one major issue leading into the election.
Well, I think that there are going to be a number of other issues.
I mean, we have seen the improvements in healthcare. Yeah. We have seen the improvements on the roadways, and that is something that is active and continuous. Yeah. We will always have bad roads, and they will always have to be fixed.
No, don't do that. We will not always have bad roads. We have particularly bad roads in St. Vincent and Grenadines. I don't think that I've been to any Caribbean country, and I've gone to a number of them, where the roads are as bad as in St. Vincent. But we spend a lot of money on roads.
Perhaps they stay bad for way too long, I should have said.
We spend a lot of money on roads, and it is because the roads are not done properly why we spend so much money on roads. So I don't take it that, well, we would always have bad roads. I think that we can do a much better job.
I'm going along with the line that some roadways perhaps will only last 10 to 15 years.
But no, which roadway in St. Vincent lasts 10 to 15 years?
That's the thing.
But a road is a road. If a road is done scientifically and properly, a road should have a life. You understand what I'm saying? And you should know. I always talk about this, Donnie. In 1979, 1980, that's how many years ago?
Enough.
A lot.
Yeah.
They built a road which is now called the Morris Bishop Highway. The Cubans built the road from out from the main road on the eastern side of Grenada, going down to Maurice Bishop International Airport. In 1980, that road is still there, and it has not been substantially changed or repaired in all of those years, because the road was done properly. And the topography of Grenada is quite similar to St. Vincent.
I've heard the Minister of Transport lament the fact that the bitumen mix is substandard in some areas.
Well, it's substandard because if the people who are doing it are not doing good work, it's substandard. But if I tell you to build a house for me, and you're not building that house properly, why would I hire the same company to build a house? I mean, I know of situation in St. Vincent where a particular company had to be removed from a contract building a road on the windward side of the country. And within a few months, they want another contract to build a road on the leeward side of the country. So,
yes.
I mean, I'm sure if we pay close attention, all of us would remember that situation.
Yes. I see a call popping up. Let's take it. Good morning.
Hello?
Greetings. Good morning.
Is this
All right. Well, we are strapped for time, and we're already heading towards 9. Now, you had some statements to make in the media not so long ago, describing the process during your tenure as a candidate. You didn't think you got the type of support that you needed. It was like, some say it's an attack on the ULP. Not so long after you resigned. Do you think that obtained to other candidates the lack of support, perhaps financial support?
Well, I can't say. I can't speak for other candidates. I can only speak for myself. And I know for a fact that I didn't get the level of support that I could have gotten. I know for a fact, had I gotten 1/3 of the support that some people got, I would have won that seat comfortably. People talk about 3,000 votes. I could have easily gotten 3,000 votes. We took that from 2,310 votes to 2,620 votes and still lost. The number of votes that we got was sufficient to win about 6 or 7 of the other seats across the constituencies. And so we did a lot of work. We didn't get the support, and I am convinced that there was a conspiracy for me not to win the seat.
Any evidence of that? That's a heavy one.
A whole lot. I mean, in a sense, I'm not even sure if we need to go through this now. I don't think it serves any useful purpose.
No, because the point, what I'm trying to drive at is that I heard mention that it was a tough time. Not both parties didn't have a lot of money.
You believe that?
Well, it's not for me to believe.
Oh, okay.
It's what I'm hearing.
That's nonsense.
So that wasn't, you said nonsense.
Nonsense. If a party is in power, or a party is an opposition, a major opposition party, and they can't raise $6, $7, $8 million to run an election, they wasting time. You have 15 seats. If you divide 15 by 100,000, let's say $150,000, you say you're going to put that into each seat. That is not even $2 million.
And that did not happen.
In the elections, I can tell you, and like I said, there's a tremendous amount of reluctance to go through this. If I got $30,000 from the party, I got a lot.
Oh. Subsequently,
and I know other people got significantly much more.
Are these the situations that drove you to resign from the party? Or there were other fundamental reasons?
The fundamental reasons why I resigned from the party was because I had always, maybe I can say something now that I have not said before. After the last elections, I had told a lot of people that I had absolutely no intention of running for the ULP again, because I felt that if I was treated in the way in which I was treated in 2015, it is highly probable that the same treatment would come in 2020. So that was my position then. And you can verify that with a number of people who were very close to my campaign manager, some people who were very, very, very close. That was the position. I got to say, though, that a lot of people kept pressing and pushing and saying, man, no, you can't do that. You came so close the last time, you have to. But I was very settled in that view. Then in 2016, I remember October 2016, it was just before I went to Taiwan on a delegation with the PM. I wrote a column called "The World Has Changed," in which I thought I was just dealing with developmental issues and trying to show how difficult it is for governments. And I talked about how the kind of things that we've done, you do this for tourism development, you do this in the Grenadines, this. And nobody picked up the column until I think after we had returned. Some radio station, I can't remember if it's Hot 97, had picked it up. But all hell broke loose. It was said that I was against foreign direct investment, which is nonsense, foolishness. And it started from there. But I had been, Donnie, an activist all of my life. Ever since I was 13 to 14 years old, I got into student politics. I became a youth leader with an organization called Vanguard Youth. I've been in organizations all my life. I felt that, St. Vincent is the place. So even when I went away and spent 21 years in the United States and got an education there, I thought, why don't you come back and see if you can make a contribution to St. Vincent? And it wasn't so much a contribution in terms of a political contribution, but to be here and to be an activist and to do certain things. Well, it led me down the road. I have absolutely no regrets in what I did. I have never prostituted myself. I would never prostitute myself. But I see myself as a transparent person. I see myself, sometimes I speak stridently, sometimes I speak forcefully. And that is because it comes from a deep commitment. None of this is academic to me. I feel this in my stomach. I feel it in my heart. And over the years, I've studied sufficiently and I've read sufficiently to be convinced in my brain that a lot of what I do and say is correct. I saw some place where someone said, I may be wrong, but I'm seldom in doubt. Because I'm a considered person. I don't just widely say anything.
All right.
Or anything.
Let's take a call. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Greetings.
A question here for Jomo. Now that you have resigned from the party and we know you're always a big supporter of that, are you still going to support the party, like voting for the party or anything like that?
But my vote is my vote. Why would you want to know about my vote? That is a private thing. I wouldn't tell you what your vote is. I wouldn't inquire of what your vote would be.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Would you prefer to see the NDP or the ULP continue to govern this country?
The parties, when the election time comes, the question is which party offers the better trajectory for forward development. That is what would determine which of them should continue. I don't have a preference. I don't have a preference that is based on air. I have a preference.
Okay.
I have a preference that is based on policies. A preference that is based on program. A preference that is based on personalities, experience, leadership. All of those things would come into play.
Okay then. So, one more question for you. Dr. Friday and Dr. Gonzalez, which one do you think is a better leader?
I'll put it this way. Dr. Gonzalez is 74 years old. He's on his way out. So that's not a good analogy.
Okay. Thank you for your answer.
All right. Thank you for your call. What's the future for you, though? Folks are saying that you will now be wide open to run independent. Do you still have political aspirations?
You remember me saying to you that in this country where you have two major parties, it is the individual bring little to the process. because the support is going to be broken down along party lines. I remember when I was running, somebody said to me, Mr. Thomas, you don't even have to come into my yard, and if Ralph Gonsalves put up a lizard, I'm voting for it. So, I mean, somebody can run on principle to say, all right, I want to be an independent candidate on principle. But there's no history in St. Vincent except for Calder Williams didn't even do it. Calder Williams ran on the NDP ticket, won, and then broke away. I don't know of any instance in St. Vincent political history where an independent candidate has gone on to win. And that is not a frequent occurrence any place in the Caribbean as far as I know.
You did say earlier that anything could happen.
Yeah, but the realm of possibilities are infinite, but it's highly improbable that somebody would run as an independent, at least as far as I can see now, and win. So I have no intentions of running as an independent. I will always be political. As I said, I've been political ever since I was 13, 14. Nobody is ever going to say, I can pin Jomo and say, Jomo wouldn't do this or Jomo wouldn't do that. Even though in my mind I know what I would do or what I would not do. But nobody would be able to put me in a box and count me out and say, all right, Jomo is now going to get on his yacht and sail to the Grenadines.
What are the things that we might be able to pin to say that you will continue with your activism?
Without a doubt. I have said time and time again, I would die with my boots on.
And that brings us to perhaps the newest one, where your activism has again put you at odds with the ULP hierarchy.
Yeah.
We have heard your remarks coming out from the debate of the estimates.
Yeah.
I've heard the response of the General Secretary of the ULP.
Yeah.
And yesterday I read a release from the Ministry of Finance.
Yeah.
And everyone is pointing to you being wrong about the entire idea. In case no one is picking up what I'm talking about, is your statements about what some are now calling illegal overdrafts.
Yeah.
Care to respond on that?
Well, Donnie, the first things first, huh? First things first.
Mm-hmm.
First things first. You would know that I wrote a column. I've been writing columns now for close to 20 years. And I wrote a column that said a set of things. And I said what was not the major story, and I said what I thought was the major story. I said that certain charges were made, certain allegations were made by the leader of the opposition, and I sat there and I expected to hear a response from PM Gonsalves, who's a veteran in this thing. He had 4 hours to talk. He didn't say anything. I expected to hear a response from the Honorable Minister of Finance as it relates to the allegations. He said nothing. So in my mind, I took it to mean that they were letting this, see if this could fly under the radar. So I said the biggest outtake for me from the budget was the allegation made by the opposition leader. And I also said that if what the opposition leader was saying is true, it meant that the government was engaged in illegality. I didn't stop there. I went to the law. I went to the Financial Administration Act. And I said, this is what the Act says. The Act says you can borrow on an overdraft. It says that the period with which you can do it either by law or by resolution, the period of the overdraft is 12 months. Yeah? That's what the Act says. Now, I have heard Minister Francis, when it comes as a whip, I don't know if people understand what a political whip is, but I don't think there has ever been a better political whip in St. Vincent. The man knows how to respond. But he's off. First thing, he confuses and conflates an overdraft that Donnie Collins or Julian Francis may have with an overdraft that the government would have. That's the first thing that he did wrong. That is not the same thing, because a bank may decide to let Donnie Collins or Jomo Thomas run over on the overdraft, because they may say, okay, Jomo may come in with, or Donnie may come in with his salary next week and he may cover that. It is not the overdraft, as is reflected in section 45 and 44 and 45 of the Finance Administration Act. It's not a relationship between the bank and the government, fundamentally. It is a relationship between the government and the law. The law says that you have 12 months to do the overdraft, within which to do the overdraft. The law says it's a fluctuating overdraft. And therefore, the overdraft is not a loan. The overdraft cannot willy-nilly be turned into a loan, because the law does not say that. And that's the difference between me on the minister, whom as a politician and who as an articulator of government policy, I have absolute respect for. Absolute respect. So that's one thing. The other thing, as it relates to the numbers, Donnie. Well, let me just say as well that I have spoken to financial people with CPA, all of them to a man, and I've spoken to people in St. Vincent and I spoke to people across the region. All of them to a man says that in strict accounting financial terms, an overdraft is not a loan. It's not a loan. I hope you understand what I'm saying here.
Yeah, I'm following.
So I don't just talk because I want to talk. And I didn't say anything because I want to beat up on the ULP. I am a Vincentian, and I am concerned about St. Vincent. In fact, if you look at the release from the Ministry of Finance, and if you listen to PM Gonzalez last Sunday, the thing was that, every single government would have done this.
And I picked that up in the release from right. I picked that up too.
You saw it in the in PM statement on Sunday. Donnie, this is why on matters of judicial review, every time I sue the government, I beat them. Because they say, everybody has done it. But you would say, well, Mr. Thomas, I've been working by WEFM for how many years? 10 years, 15 years, and ever since I came here, they're doing it.
Right.
Guess what? The fact that everybody was doing it does not make it right. Does not mean that it conforms with the law. If you want to turn an overdraft into a loan, you have to get the authority to do it. So the relationship that you have with the bank, which says, I could just talk to the bank and turn it into a loan, that is not what the law says. And I don't want to make this no political point. I don't want to beat up on nobody. I just want to talk about, as I said in the column, talk about transparency, talk about best practices. Because I'm telling you, you may recall back in 2001, it was because of the best practice projections of the ULP that the British, who had refused to give loan forgiveness to the outgoing party, readily gave, I think, about $15 million loan forgiveness to this government. So I'm not beating up on anybody. But listen, I spent 10 years in university. I hear people talking all kind of foolishness, but he know nothing but economics, he know nothing but finance. I have a master's degree in political economy. A master's degree. I did the same regression analysis like everybody else. In law school, I did a number of finance and banking classes. So I'm not just talking off of the top of my head, because people see me walking around in a short pants and a sandal and a dashiki sometimes, or a t-shirt. In all of my simplicity, they think, well, this man don't know nothing. Or they think that I am just a blowhard. But I don't just talk like that. I don't want to beat nobody. I don't have no political axe to grind.
The leader of the opposition weighed in on the issue. Do you think he fully understood your standpoint?
I quite frankly, I didn't hear what the leader of the opposition said. But remember, he was the one who made the remarks in the parliament, in his response to the budget. Julian Francis said I was completely overwhelmed. I wasn't overwhelmed. I heard information, and I took the information for what it was, and I expected to hear a response. I don't have no side. When Mr. Daniel Cummins said what he said about the government trying to use to bump up its cruise ship numbers, it allowed people who were possibly infected with the coronavirus to come in. I checked him on that. When other people say certain things, on whichever side, I check them on that. I don't have when I sit on that chair, when I go into that parliament and I sit on that chair, I don't think that I am ULP. I think that I'm the people's representative. They put me there to serve as speaker, and I try to be as honest, as balanced, as straightforward as I can get. The other thing, the numbers. I see in the press release, and PM talked about it. The numbers, whether it's 40 million or 50 million or 70 million or whatever million. The numbers are not what's fundamental in Donnie. What is fundamental is that each year, you have a limit. And if you ever go over that limit, you are breaking the law. In the same way that PM admitted during the October 2019 debate that when the government went over the $25 million limit on the special warrants, it was not a hanging offense. You remember?
I remember that statement, yeah.
But whether it's a hanging offense or it's a reprimand and discharge, the fact of the matter is, when you go over the special warrants limit, you're breaking the law. When you go over the limit as is authorized in the resolution, you're breaking the law.
Okay, let's take a quick call. Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Nice to hear from you guys this morning. I have one question.
Sure.
I believe Mr. Thomas is, you have a right to write whatever you want to write and your opinion. But I am very curious as to why you did not, particularly being that you are the Speaker of the House, why you did not bring these concerns and your opinions during the parliamentary debate, where you have the authority to force to get the responses and to bring the concerns in Parliament at that time.
Right.
Thank you.
Excellent question.
All right.
Because that has gotten a lot of currency. Ma'am, it is not my responsibility, it's not my role. I don't have the authority to do what you have asked and what people say that I can do. Like I said, I listened to the budget presentation, which I thought was an excellent presentation. I listened to the response of the leader of the opposition, the first 2 hours, which I thought were very good, thoughtful responses to the budget presentation, particularly the first 2 hours. I listened to PM Gonzalez, and I got like about 3.5 hours of his presentation, because after the 3 hours, I asked for a break and I went outside, but I was listening. And I listened to all of the Minister of Finance presentation. Once that was done, on Thursday, I went to look at the law. It is not for the Speaker to question the parliamentarians in their debate. The Speaker is more like a referee. The Speaker is more like an ombudsman. The Speaker is that's his or her role. It is not for him to get into the arena of the debate or try to debate a particular parliamentarian or to contradict a particular parliamentarian. That is not the role of the speaker. So some people I heard on radio say, why now? Why are you saying this now? I can't say it not a time as speaker. But even those people who say, why now? Why you say this now? Evidently don't listen to Jomo Thomas, because I always say, always.
Perhaps we can squeeze one more. Oh, we lost that one. We have 4 more minutes before we wrap it up. I can safely say now that perhaps this is the end of your political career active.
No, don't say that. You're going to be wrong.
I might be wrong.
You will be.
Okay, let's take one more call. Good morning.
Hey, good day, gentlemen.
Greetings.
I just this speaker expounding that why he don't weigh in on certain issues like the current biggest issue at hand. But I can remember in no confidence debate, he weighed in a lot. He gave his opinion, whether right or wrong. He was actually part of the debate, in my opinion.
Well, that is correct, but that was a very different context, because the role of the speaker as it relates to the issue of the vote of no confidence was to point to the tradition in the parliament and to give examples where, when the situation was on the other side, this is what happened, because that was the practice. So I thought it was my role to bring that out to the parliamentarians, particularly the governing side parliamentarians, because they were in opposition at one time, and this is what they did. So I thought it was my role to do that. And again, remember what that was. That was a vote of no confidence. I didn't weigh in on whether a case should be made for no confidence or not. I weighed into the history and the tradition, and I weighed into the issues of the law, which, in my respectful opinion, is different than what people would expect me to do generally.
All right.
But all of that is done soon.
Soon.
I will be gone.
Soon you'll be leaving the position of speaker.
Yes.
And
I heard a particular
I kept hearing in Parliament, though, how soon? What are you going to leave?
well, remember in October when I did the press conference, I said I would be gone no later than the end of the first quarter.
That's in March
of 2020. If we check a calendar year, the
That's
end
March.
of the first quarter will be the end of March. I will leave before the end of March.
All right. Now, on the issue of running independent, folks have been WhatsApping on the WhatsApp and saying, hey, there is Jack Warner, there is James Mitchell, who have had both successful runs as independent candidates.
Jomo Thomas is neither Jack Warner nor James Mitchell.
So then can we see perhaps a new political party emerging? Because you have said that it's not the end of your political career.
No. But even before I became a candidate for the ULP, I had a very long history in politics.
Yeah, well, people would like that kind of political representation.
I know.
And you will not add anything beyond that.
I don't think this is necessary for us at this time.
Well, we can only now keep an eye as to how things develop. It is still early days yet. As you say, anything can happen. Elections will be this year. If the projection obtains.
Very late.
Very late.
And part of the reason why it's going to be late, a lot of things have been backloaded. The government is going to take some time, probably most of this year. I mean, they have, for example, you have the bridges in Chateaubriand to finish. You have the, you're going to see how far we can get in the geothermal project. We have the hotels to see if they're going to really get off the ground. We have, because the hotel in the Black Sands Hotel, when the ground was broken there, it was said that we were going to have a 400-room hotel in the space of 22 months. It is now about, 36 months, 38 months, 40 months. And there's some shells there. Every now and again I drive down, I take a picture to see what kind of progress. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of that play out. But you can be sure that the government is going to want to have some of those ducks lined up before it calls the election. PM loves December. December has been good to him. So you can be sure he would probably wait for very deep in 2020.
So the Vincentian public could look forward to quite a lot of activities this year.
Well, some sections of the Vincentian public could. I'm not so sure that all of the things that the government would do would impact on the majority of Vincentians.
Well, that will be just a waste.
No, it wouldn't be a waste.
We can see there will be developments in the healthcare sector. A new acute referral hospital is on the cards.
Yeah, but Donnie,
that will affect quite a lot.
You would know that the structure is not what's going to make people believe that things are happening enough. The thing that affect people in a real way is when mommy or daddy or my brother goes to the hospital or to the clinic and can't get this or can't get that, or something happens, may not be as a result of any kind of negligence or anything at the hospital, but unfortunately, sadly, somebody loses their life. That's what people remember. People are not going to look at how beautiful the building looks. You heard the numbers last time of the tremendous amount of people that has benefited from the diagnostic center in Georgetown. Does that mean that is going to reflect in votes for the government one way or the other? It may not be. And I give again the example of the international airport. I remember the Honorable former Prime Minister James Mitchell had said, if the airport is done, the NDP can kiss elections goodbye for a long time. The airport was finished and we ended up 8-7. So a lot of these things are not, there's a lot of hype around them. And for those people who are not very clear-headed, they may jump to conclusions about what this or
2020 Manifesto.
What this or that might how it might impact on the elections. But you can be sure that the slogan is going to be hard. It's not going to be a runaway for either party.
Many people are saying that we may return the very same result.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Well,
anything one with the other, I don't think it's going to be 9-6, 10-5. But any other wild projection would not hold up to scrutiny or to the result.
All right.
And even 9-6 or 10-5 probably would be.
Might be a stretch. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Anytime, Don.
And thank you for being here with us.
Sure.
This is WEFM 99.9. We've been speaking with Mr. Jomo Thomas in our second edition of 2020 Manifesto.
2020 Manifesto. Every Friday from 8 a.m. on WEFM 99.9. Let's look at the projections for elections 2020. Candidates, polls and statistics, debates, and an in-depth look at all the manifestos of the 4 political parties as they become available. 2020 Manifesto. Every